Hello, welcome to Wednesday, March 25th's assignment. We're going to be in the book on page 54, 55, and 56. There are hardly any words on these pages, and I do expect you to read them, but let's just do a discussion real quick. Well, a one-way discussion. So, the Israelites rebelled against God after he rescued them from 400 years worth of slavery. They're in the desert, they've been saved. Moses goes up on the mountain and he takes a while, 40 days, because he's talking with God, and they make a golden calf. They rebel against God and say, "Where have you been? You've taken too long." And they forget about him after they had seen the 10 plagues and the manna in the desert. So the Hebrew word most often used to express the idea of sin is pesha. You don't need to know that word, but just the idea. That's my cat, Francis Albert, who we call Sunshine. So the idea is not the word say. So the Old Testament idea of sin is transgression or rebellion. And we all rebel against God because we want to be in control. We want to decide what's right or wrong or what we get to do. They also have another concept of sin in the Old Testament. You gonna pan this cat? Sunshine, what are you doing? That's my cat, Sunshine. So, they have another concept of sin, which is to miss the mark. And in the book, they show an arrow. So like you're trying to shoot a bow and arrow and you miss. That's what it's like when we sin sometimes. We don't want to be in rebellion in this concept. We want to be good, but we're just undisciplined. We have a lack of commitment to our plans, and we let the world and our culture influence us more than we let our scriptures, our church, or that inward law that's written on our hearts. On page 55 in your book, they talk about missing the mark, but they also give you 5 examples from the Old Testament of great heroes from the Old Testament. It's Gideon, Samson, Samuel, King David, and King Solomon. You can read those stories, but I'm going to tell you one now. So it's 2 Samuel chapter 11. You can go read it, but it's about King David. King David, the greatest king Israel has ever known. In fact, last Sunday, if you watched Mass, you would have heard the story about how the prophet went to Jesse and asked for his son, and he turned down the 6 older sons and chose the youngest. So, King David's the great king. He's living in Jerusalem. He's got a great kingdom, a big house, living the life. And one day he looks out from the roof of his palace and sees a beautiful woman, Bathsheba, bathing. And instead of being happy with what he already had, and he was in a very close relationship with God, he has Bathsheba brought to him in his palace. And as things tend to happen, one thing leads to another, and the next thing we know, Bathsheba, who is not King David's wife, is pregnant. Oh, but Bathsheba's already married to Uriah, a soldier in David's army. So what David does to cover up his sin is that he has Uriah killed on the battlefield so that he will never know that his wife was pregnant and it wasn't his child, because obviously he was on the field fighting for his king David, who has betrayed him, betrayed God. A few days later, Nathan the prophet goes to David and says, "I have to tell you a story. There was a very rich farmer and a very poor farmer, and the rich farmer had fields and all kinds of cattle and lambs and animals, and the poor farmer only had one little baby ewe. And the ewe lived I'm sorry, I just feel very awkward about this, so bear with me. He had one little baby ewe, a baby girl lamb, and it lived in the house with him and his children. And it even says that this man loved this baby lamb as a daughter. But the rich farmer needed a lamb for when his friend came to visit, so he went and took the poor man's only sheep. Nathan tells this story to King David, and David says, "This man deserves to die for such a great sin." And Nathan the prophet says, "But you, David, are that man. You had everything, your own wife, your kingdom, your armies, your success, your gold, and you've taken the one thing that belonged to Uriah, his wife, and you've had him killed to cover your sin." So that's a great story. What I want you to do for your assignment today is write a response to this silly fumbling video and tell me if you got any points out of it. Also, on the bottom of page 55 is a verse we've talked about before. It's St. Paul who talks about missing the mark in his own life. He says, "What I do not understand, for I do not do what I want, but I do what I hate." And I think King David would agree with that. So I would like you to take that verse and make a small poster, send me a picture, and send me a response of this. And if you want to, you can read Psalm 51. It's the great psalm of all Christianity of someone telling God how sorry they are for their sins. And this was written by King David, who knew what it was like to be forgiven for the great sin he committed, because God forgave him from the heart. See you later.